welcome everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Every Day is a New Day show. My name is Kim O'Neill, and it is so good to be here with you again today. We are going to be talking today about reinventing your life and purpose in retirement. But before we get to that, let's take a quick moment to shake off yesterday. Shake off yesterday. And that's always a metaphor. It's a metaphor for maybe it's, 10 minutes before you showed up here today. Maybe it's whatever's been going on in your morning, in your week, whatever it is that you'd like to start to shake off the energy of, so that you can come into the present moment and enjoy this moment for yourself. This is something you can do at any time for you. It's a gift you give yourself, bringing yourself into that present moment awareness, connecting back into your power. Take a deep breath. So glad that you are here. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to sharing with you an inspirational quote to get us going. So today's quote is from C.S. Lewis. He says, "You are never too old to set a new goal or dream a new dream. You are never too old to set a new goal or dream a new dream." That is so true. That is so true. If you ever find yourself in the mindset of, I can't do that. That time has passed in life, or gosh, I really wanted to do that, but forget that now. You know what? If there's something that you're passionate about, if there's something that inspires you, ignites, a flame in you and it inspires you, it's there for a reason. I encourage you to go for those things that you are passionate about, that you want to do. If you are alive, then there's still time. You're still here. And it's up to you to decide how you want to live your life moving forward. I hope you always know that. Age is just a number, never too old. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about today's guest with you. And then we're going to get into our conversation. So today's guest is David Dachinger, is a retired fire lieutenant and EMT, a two-time Grammy Award nominee, a stage 4 cancer survivor, co-author of the book Live Calm with Cancer and Beyond, and co-creator of the Loving Meditations app, as well as the host of the Responder Resilience podcast, co-host. His firsthand experience undergoing cancer treatment profoundly altered the landscape of his life and inspired him to be an advocate for firefighter wellness. After retiring, he began hosting the Responder Resilience podcast, which is dedicated to improving the mental and physical well-being of police, fire, EMS, and dispatch personnel. And today, David's going to be talking to us about reinventing your life and purpose in retirement. And with that, I welcome David to the show. Welcome, David.
Hi, Kim. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. What are before we get into your story and how you started hosting your podcast and all the things that you're doing today, just what are your initial thoughts about age and as we all get older?
Well, I love the fact that you shared that quote, because it really ties into our conversation about retirement, which is, it's about age, right? Time flows forward, right? We can't stop time. So every good thing that starts is going to have an ending at some point. And in this case, we're talking about someone's career. But I think age is a construct in a certain way. It's a belief system in a certain way. And I've seen people buy into it to the point where they literally will say, I'm not going to be alive that much longer after I retire. I mean, it's shocking to hear it, but it's like they're already kind of bought into that belief system. And then on the other side of the coin, I think you can believe that age is just a number, and that you're capable of amazing things as we get older. I mean, some cases, scientifically, they've shown that people can run at a peak level well into their mid to later 60s. And, one would think, well, your body's deteriorating, you're getting older, but in some ways, the body physiologically actually maintains a high level of capability, into our 60s and even beyond that. So that's inspiring. And I think that you'll see, in my travels, I see people who embrace the aging process in a way that it doesn't seem like it's slowing them down or preventing them from living life fully. And there's other people who are like, you can tell they're already kind of in checkout mode. Like they're like, well, I'm going to start winding down and just put everything on the back burners and get ready for, the next chapter or whatever that is of, of slowing down my life.
I've seen it too, where people, as soon as they retire, and I just always have to say this: everyone's free to do whatever they want in their life, but it's kind of sad sometimes when you're like, wait a second, no, you see so much more life and more years in people, but you know that they're all ready to kind of throw in the towel and call it quits, and so yeah, I've seen that too. So let's get into talking a little bit more about your story, because then I know this is going to parlay into some more questions that are going to bring this conversation even deeper, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I want to first start with, how did you follow up a career as a fire lieutenant and cope with your own loss of identity, connection to the firehouse family? I know how big and meaningful that is. The first responder mission. How did you follow up all of that with some of the things that you're doing today?
Right. Well, I'll say, first of all, that we don't do a very good job preparing our firefighters, police, EMS personnel, dispatchers, everyone else who's in that general profession of first responders. We don't do a very good job of preparing them for retirement, which the process of which could start as soon as you're a recruit in the academy, and then you can start planning and having some strategies for, how you're going to proceed after your career is over. So in my case, I didn't feel like I prepared, but I did have a plan. And plan A, right? Plan A was going to involve doing some video production with someone and creating a video series. And so that actually gave me this, I don't know, the confidence to say, I can retire now because I have something to do next.
Okay.
And it's meaningful.
However, and I love that you just said that. I want to highlight that I've heard so many times, you want to have a plan to retire to something. Mm-hmm. And sounds like that's what was part of the mindset that you had. So that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. And to your question, Kim, I mean, one of the things first responders experience, and I think it's what gets them into the profession, is that they have a deep desire to be of service and a deep desire to serve other humans. And once you do that last shift and you leave the firehouse, police station, EMS station, you no longer have that, right? It's like, it takes some effort to find another mission that can fill that gap. And I think that can be a problem for people who leave the profession and now are faced with a lot of time on their hands. Maybe they're going home to their family who they haven't been spending a lot of time with, or haven't cultivated a good relationship because they've been so busy working and saving lives. So that's when I was referring to the preparation, there's a lot of elements that need to be looked at for a healthy retirement phase.
That is such a good key component about, at first, just think about, okay, you have this work family and you no longer have that once you retire, but then taking a look at your own family, the personal family that you live with, or right, that you identify with outside of the job.
Or it's really the first family.
Exactly right. Really the first family. And so what preparation have you done for that? Oh my goodness. Okay. So will you say a little bit more about that then before we move on to the next question? Is it just, talk a little bit more. What was that process like for you then when you were realizing, oh my goodness, I'm now in this transitional phase and what am I going to do?
Right. I know that in some ways you can't prepare totally for that eventuality of leaving the job. And when you asked about identity and family, so the firehouse for me was my second family, very close family. I was blessed to be on a shift for many years that, you couldn't ask for a better bunch of guys. We had fun. We went on RV trips together. We ate together amazing meals. We just clicked. And, that over time disbanded. And when I ended my career, I was not on that shift, but still the whole firehouse family is, it's like none other, right? We're doing extreme things and we're out there being of service, working as a team together, to be of service to humanity in people's worst moments. And so that creates a bond, right? That's really difficult to replicate. So instantly that's kind of removed. Instantly, you're not showing up for work at this job that, everybody tends to love because, you're done, right? They've taken you out of the email list for the fire department. The crazy thing is, and, we all think that we're really important to the department, and in some ways we are, but they've already got to fill your shoes, right? The mission has to keep going. The wheel keeps
Exactly.
turning. They got to answer the calls. So, you know, for me, like a rude awakening was they promoted a guy into my position, and then I heard a story secondhand about his first fire, you know, on my engine, right? And I'm like, you know, my heart sank. You know, it's just there's a certain kind of um, sadness to it to know that, you know, I passed the torch in a sense to someone else, and they're doing those calls, and they've got a whole new, you know, career ahead of them, and
Right.
I'm looking in the rearview mirror. So those are some of the things that I wrestled with, and I've spoken to other first responders who have had very similar experiences.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. No one can ever truly be replaced, and yet we're all replaceable. Goes both
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah. In a cosmic sense too, right? I mean, we're all going to leave the planet at some point, and, you know, people are being born every day. People are passing on to the next, you know, wherever we go every day. And, but I guess, you know, the ego wants to think that we're very important and, you know, we're
Right.
irreplaceable.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, thank you for adding on to that. So tell us a little bit more. What is retirement for you? Do you call retirement, or do you have another word for it?
I really don't like the word because that does to me have the connotation of, you know, going down to, you know, a senior community, sitting around the pool, playing golf, going to the early bird special, you know, I don't know,
Eating dinner
clipping
at
coupons.
4. Sorry. No
Yes.
offense to anybody. Sorry.
Yeah. You know,
Sorry.
wearing like plaid shorts that don't match your shirt and, you know, those little weird hats that older men wear. So that's my vision of retirement. And for that reason, I prefer other words, right? You could say the next chapter. You could say the second season, you know, you could say life
Mm,
2.0. And those to me have much more, again, it gets back to like having a dream. Like you're never too old to have a new dream or a new goal. And once we say take that word retirement out of the equation, the next chapter is like it's full of possibility, right? Like I can do something new now. I can, you know, I can go out there in the world and try something I've never tried before. I can, you know, I can experiment and see what I like, what I don't like. I can, you know, do something that I'm passionate about, and so there's a freedom in it. That's the good part of it, right? I now have time that I didn't have during my career at the fire department to do things that I feel like I still want to do in, you know, in this part of my life.
So what are some of the things, I know you're hosting the Responder Resilience podcast, but tell us a little bit more about what the things you do that keep you inspired and motivated in this next chapter of your life.
Sure. Well, you mentioned the podcast, Kim. That really grew out of participating in a peer support group, you know, sort of multifaceted police, fire, EMS, dispatch, animal control, run by two clinicians. And so I started attending that just to stay connected in with the first responder community, because again, once you leave the firehouse, you want to think that, you know, they're going to think of you every day and call you and stay in touch. And in fact, it takes some effort to stay in touch with even a few people there. And so I wanted to have that community. And so this peer support group really filled that niche for, you know, for the short term. And I was watching these two EMDR trauma informed therapists kind of facilitate this group. They had such a great chemistry and did such a great job with the group, keeping things light when they needed to lighten up, and knowing how to go deep and, you know, into the dark places when that was appropriate. I'm like, you know, we could put together a podcast talking about first responder, you know, issues like mental health and other wellness issues with Bonnie and Stacy. And so we did a pilot, and then from there we, you know, we kind of launched it in I guess it was the September of 2021. And Kim, you were part of the first season. You really an integral part of what probably one of our best shows that season.
Thank
And
you.
so it went on from there, and that's kind of become, you know, my main focus.
Tell her, I love it so much. I feel like I have to say love a lot. I love that your co-hosts are knowledgeable about EMDR and things like that. And so, for anybody who's not familiar, will you tell everyone in your best, way to describe it, what EMDR is and how it helps people?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a modality that it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And if you think about, you know, what we do in REM sleep, our eyes, you know, you've seen the people's eyes kind of go back and forth in their deeper sleep cycles. Well, this somehow mimics that and allows the brain to kind of reintegrate experiences. So in the first responder world, I think the number is, in a career, a first responder will, besides all the other calls they go to, a first responder will go to like 188, traumatic incidents, which take their toll over time. And what EMDR does is, in a rather, quicker than talk therapy, it allows the brain to reprocess these memories. Some of them, cause insomnia. Some of them cause, elevated heart rate and cortisol rush and, anxiety, depression, all kinds of stuff, right? It pushes people into dark places. Well, EMDR has the ability to kind of unravel that and allow that experience and that memory to be placed into a file drawer, if you will, where you can pull that out at any time and look at it, but it's not haunting you. It's not looping. It's not like a highly charged, um, you know, memory that you can't kind of push away.
Right. Uh, so thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So your co-hosts are familiar with this, and they bring this to the peer support team that you are in connection with and all that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. What are some of the challenges that you've encountered in your journey, and, that you've seen in your next chapter and some of the other people's next chapter that you know of?
Yeah, though there's a loss, there's a sadness, there's a deep, profound grief. There's a grieving process that I experienced that still goes on to this day. I mean, it's hard to see a fire engine go by without having that little pit in your stomach, right?
Aww.
And it's hard to say, sometimes it's hard to say a retired firefighter. I'll flip that around, though. I think having done that job, and anybody who's done a job, law enforcement, fire, all the responder professions, you have a certain kind of, you'll get a certain kind of impact with people when you say that. I am a retired firefighter, because we are clearly, having done the job, we are people who have a certain kind of experience, compassion, ability that maybe is not common in everyday life. And so you carry that forward too, and that can be used in a very constructive way, right? I think it really gives you a lot of credibility, and people will tend to I think they tend to trust people more who will have that background.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also, being in the retired state, you have more freedoms, things that you can do that you probably couldn't do when you were working the job. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes. And to add to that, I'm meeting people I never would have met doing the job, because that was very, you're in a local environment. So you meet people, county-wide, statewide. What the podcast has done is I'm now meeting people mostly nationally, but also internationally to a smaller extent, where, there's a national community of people who are trying to enhance the well-being of first responders, and doing it all different ways. Some people are writing books, some people are coaches, some people are speakers, trainers. And I'm meeting these people, having them on the show and learning what they do and hearing their stories. And to me, that's, I never would have done that if I was still working at the firehouse.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to just briefly go back to the EMDR thing and trauma and things like that. You mentioned that public safety personnel can experience up to 188 traumas in their career. Is that correct?
Right. That's the number. Yeah.
That's the number. Okay. And it really only takes one to be able to get a person to be experiencing insomnia or flashbacks or PTSD, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. One call can do it. It could be accumulation of calls, or it could be one particular call that just has some element, and not everybody's going to be affected the same way, but one person will connect in with a smell, a sight, somebody they see reminds them of someone, they love. Who knows? Some of it could just be intangible, but yeah, it has one call has the ability to kind of be a traumatic incident for a first responder.
And so this is why I just want to highlight that, because you are helping first responders with your podcast, talking about, I want to just say the name again, responder resilience. And the word wellness, I know, is also a key word in what you and your co-hosts are doing. And when I worked at the police department, for those that don't know, I used to work at a police department psychology office. It was just said so often how, like for some people would never go to the psychologist just because of stigma, whatever. They would never, ever go. But some people, that is the one and only person they may go to talk about what they're experiencing, traumas, anxieties, fears, whatever it might be, because they don't share. It's not as common to share those kinds of things with their first family, their spouse at home, of course, their children or whatever, right? So it's so good to know that there are resources, such as, not all departments have a department psychologist, but for those that do, that's a great resource, or a peer support team. That's also a great resource. And things such as your podcast, where, if people are really just too afraid to go to anybody, they can listen to a podcast that can help them start to heal or move forward, switch up those beliefs, whatever it may be. What are some of the benefits that you see people having who are listening to Responder Resilience?
Well, before I answer that, I also wanted to add that the peer support group that I'm a part of it's a hybrid. So it's in person and it's virtual. So actually anybody anywhere in the country could log in, and they do.
Wow.
It's the kind of group where you could be in your car. I mean, I think it's better to be in your home, quiet environment, but people do log in from they're on the job. I have, there's cops that are out in their cruisers that will, pull over to the side of the road, and they're, on break, whatever, they'll check in. And so peer support doesn't mean you have to be in, at least this one, you don't have to be in a particular location, and you don't have to be in that room necessarily. But some of the benefits. So, there are people out there we are speaking with who are doing lots of studies on police suicide. And that's, as you know, Kim, that is a huge, huge epidemic challenge right now in law enforcement. And so by analyzing the data, we have a guest, I think we'll have her on next week, Dr. Olivia Johnson. She is an expert at this, and she is able to not only come up with, numbers, but also how can we change this? What changes can we make to improve this horrible situation that's every day we seem to, every other day we seem to hear another officer has taken his life. And so we have that kind of thing. We have coaches who are coaching first responders. It could be anything from promotion to, life challenges. One of our dear guests is a married couple. He's a retired fire captain, and his wife has written a column on this, and their specialty is firefighter marriage. They travel around the country speaking about this, and they also have written a book about it, and they they'll be on podcasts. So they are able to speak to, what do we need to be looking at so that we don't go home to an empty house when we retire, so we don't have broken relationships when we retire. And also because the job has a huge impact on our spouses and our kids. They don't really talk about that so much when you start, your career, but we bring home the energy of sometimes, I know I did, I brought home the energy of the negativity, maybe in the firehouse, or, I was on a bad call. I didn't get a lot of sleep, come home. And I know I brought that home. And sometimes I just had to, do a brain dump of, all these things that happen. My wonderful wife would sit there and patiently listen, and then, I can move on. But, it has an impact on our home life, and it's not recognized enough. We're starting to recognize it more, but the good news is that, we're finding experts out there who are committed to making it better. And that's super inspiring.
It's very inspiring. I agree. I think this would be a good opportunity now to, we have a little video that showcases some of your podcasts, and I think we should go ahead and share that now. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let me grab that really quick. Here we go.
In this family, more of us die by our own hands than by the hazards of the job. In this family, Up to a quarter of 911 dispatchers have symptoms of PTSD. In this family, our mental health and wellness are in crisis, while responders are quietly suffering. In this family, many struggle with job-related stress, burnout, trauma, sleep disruption, substance abuse, and marriage problems. In this family, we can help the helpers with vital information and resources, resilient strategies, and success stories of overcoming the obstacles. In this family, no one is alone. Welcome to Responder Resilience with co-hosts retired Lieutenant David Dachinger, Dr. Stacy Raymond, and Bonnie Rimley, LCSW EMTB.
I love that video. Did you create that video, I presume?
Yeah. That's I have fun doing that stuff. It's like my happy place when I get to play with video like that.
Yeah. So you create lots of video. You've been doing this type of stuff for years, and you're now currently working on some documentaries.
Yes. So we've done a couple in the course of the podcast, and as we're speaking about retirement, our latest documentary in post-production is about retirement, first responder retirement. It's going to be 2 1-hour segments, and we have probably 20 different guests speaking about it from all different angles. Not only people who had normal careers where they started and did 25 years and then retired on their own terms, but also several who had their careers cut short by medical situations, or in the case of one police officer, he was involved in a fatal shooting, which effectively began the end of his career. And so many stories that are amazing, and perspectives, a lot of wisdom and knowledge, and it's really exciting to be part of it.
Awesome. So 2 things about the video that we just showed. I love your usage of the word family. You continue to use that and drive that home. And I don't know, is there anything more you'd like to say about that? Because I wonder if there's anybody out there going, why does he keep using the word family? Why does he keep using the word family? I know what you mean, but is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, it absolutely is a family. In some cases, the bonds are incredibly strong. And even if it's someone we didn't work with, I mean, I've met people, I've never met them in person, but we've connected, let's say on LinkedIn, and within, one message, they're calling me brother. There is that kind of level of connection within the first responder community where the bond almost transcends time and space. And so we do call it a family. We do support each other. I see people come through when someone is sick, someone is experiencing a loss in their life, someone is going through a hard time. I've never seen any other family where there's that level of support. And so, it's the best use of the word, I think, to describe what we do and how we treat each other, how we support each other.
Yeah. And I also want to highlight for everyone that, it's first responders. So you include everybody in that. It's not just firefighters. It's also police. It's EMS. It's the dispatchers. It's all of them. And, there's no separation there. And so the other thing I want to bring up is I just want to kind of revisit the word stigma, because that has been so strong and what has kept people at bay from getting help and finding ways to heal themselves through whatever they've experienced as being the heroic, amazing first responder they've been. So what would you like to say? And what have you seen about stigma and the shifts that you might be seeing about that being released?
It's a great question, Kim. I think what's happening is somewhat generational, right? We're starting to see, a new group of people come in who are maybe more comfortable speaking about mental health, and even more open about talking about going to a therapist, or knowing maybe they're more aware they're more aware that they need to go get help, even if it's just to talk through something. And so the older generations where, culturally it just was not spoken about, it was, just deal with it, go on to the next call. That's just the way it was handled. And it's only recently that we're recognizing that this is having this, long-term effect on people, not only while they're in the career, but also beyond the career. So stigma is, there's some people that absolutely won't go there, that won't want to talk about mental health, or they won't acknowledge that there is any kind of problem going on. And that's their prerogative. But I think generally we're starting to see a really great trend in the conversation about mental health, about that we can make a difference by some of these modalities like EMDR, like peer support, and by having the conversations that we're having and people are having all over the country, and embracing things like meditation and yoga, um, you know, there's more of a culture of wellness. And I'll say one more thing, and that's key, that the leadership, there's also a changeover now in leadership, where there are some leaders out there who are now completely bought into the concept that, to have the best department possible, to do the best job for the public that we serve, we need to have a culture of wellness in our department. And I'm willing to stand up for it and do what it takes to institute that.
I love hearing that. When I was working at a police department, it blew my mind when we had budget cuts. And apparently there were a succession of years where there were lots of budget cuts, and the psychology office kept making it through. And then finally the year came where the psychology office didn't make it anymore. And so the office, me and the psychologist, we got cut, and she had to go somewhere else. I had to go somewhere else. That's where I ended up. I went over to the fire department. I got hired over there and got to experience the whole family thing you talk about. But my point is that, there was this anger and frustration. I was a civilian, but still going, oh my goodness, how can you let go of this resource that is so highly valuable to the officers that do utilize it, the ones that need it? And so I love hearing things such as you're seeing that shift take place. And I've seen it too in various ways. So I'm so glad to hear that. David, tell everyone where they can go to find out more about responder resilience.
Well, we have a website. It's called respondertv.com. It's got all of our past episodes. It's got our guests' information. I think you're on there, Kim. And we have, we're on YouTube. Responder Resilience is our YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, Responder TV. We're on LinkedIn, Responder Resilience, and a bunch of the podcast platforms, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and bbsradio.com.
Awesome. So again, for everybody, you want to listen to Responder Resilience podcast, go to respondertv.com. Makes it really simple that way. I love that. Okay, David, I love this conversation, but I think we are nearing the end of our interview today. Is there anything else that you would like to add to those listening today who are in that space of inching their way towards getting help, getting assistance? Wait, hold on. I'm so sorry. I'm going to say one more thing before you answer that question. I want to speak to the people. This came up earlier, and I'm glad it resurfaced. I want to also just add, maybe there's a first responder out there in the world who doesn't have any traumatic incidents that they've been on. They're fine. They're doing, they're moving along through the job just fine. But maybe you have at-home things that are really weighing you down, that are stressing you out. And are those potentially clouding, maybe clouding your judgment at work, or making work harder than it needs to be because you have stuff going on at home too? I just want to emphasize even them. There might be people listening to our conversation and saying, oh, well, I haven't had any traumas on the job. I'm doing just fine. I don't need therapy. I don't need help, whatever. Hey, therapy is not just for first responders. It's literally for everybody, and especially someone doing such a high stress job as being a first responder of any kind. Oh my goodness. I just want to drive home the importance of therapy, of wellness, of coaching, of anything of healing that aids you in your healing, the value of that. Is there anything you'd like to say to that?
A few things. One is that, as you mentioned, coaching. Yeah, if it's not necessary, therapy is not necessary for everybody. Probably not everybody needs it. Like you say, some people may go through a whole career and not kind of carry the trauma of some of those calls. We're all wired differently, so that's possible. But maybe not, instead of therapy, maybe there's some amazing coaches out there who, one coach who we've had on the show, Roger Rugi, will kind of present an array of different possibilities, different tools that you could use. And he understands that everybody's different and they may resonate towards one tool or another. And yours might be meditation and mine might be yoga, but whatever it is, he kind of matches you up with that and gives you direction. And he has like a daily journal, devotional book that steps you through on a daily basis to be in a place, a better space of gratitude and moving forward with your life. So therapy is not necessarily the right thing or necessary for everybody, but there's other options if you want to just, improve your life and elevate your game. So I'd say that. And the last thing is that first responders, in general, I'm generalizing, but we're really good at taking care of other people, but maybe not so good at knowing when we need to be taken care of. And a lot of times I hear from the therapists that when they get a call from a first responder, they're already way deep into a crisis, and they recognize that they can't delay. They have to get, help immediately, because again, we kind of commit ourselves to helping others and then we don't really, look out for ourselves that much. So I know first responders have certain very special, parameters around mental health. And that's a couple of them right there. So therapy can be very helpful, and, it doesn't necessarily have to take years. EMDR is a very kind of thorough but rapid process. And then down the road, one can just have like a tune-up. You might have a bad call and say, okay, maybe I just should give my EMDR therapist a call, deal with that call, and then maybe you're good for another year or 6 months. So it's not all like sitting on the couch with Sigmund Freud and being analyzed, this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for speaking to all of that. And yes, there are so many modalities, tools, types of resources available. Therapy, coaching, meditation, the EMDR. There's like so many different ones. It's just starting to say, okay, yes, let me look into it. What speaks to me? What can I use right now? So thank you so much, David. Thank you so much for being here and sharing everything that you did. I love talking about this, and I love how you are supporting first responders through Responder Resilience podcast and your documentaries. Do you want to say anything about, is there any sort of date of when those are coming out or anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, we hope they're going to air in April. We're getting, kind of in the last phase of post-production.
Okay.
And I'm really super excited about it. I think some of the things you and I touched on today are much more thoroughly covered in the documentary. So
Awesome.
I would say just, check in on our channels and our Facebook page. We'll usually advertise it a week or so in advance. And so Life 2.0, it's not a bad thing.
I love it. Okay. Life 2.0. So much more can evolve and show up in retirement. I love it. Or the next chapter, right? Whatever term you want to call it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, David. I'm going to go ahead and just drop you back down into the lobby for a few moments while I close out the show, and then I'll see you there again soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye. Thank you. What are you taking away from today's conversation? Are you a first responder? Are you someone who's been considering, I think it's time for me to, look up some resources, right? Look into a coach, a therapist, some of those healing modalities out there in the world. There are so many, truly. I don't think I could list them all right now if I were to try. If you're feeling called to do something like that, listen to that and baby steps. What is the next thing? Maybe simply, quick little Google search, or maybe, look up the Responder Resilience podcast and see, what do they talk about? What do they got going on? Listen to an episode. You hear a buzzword term that feels good. Okay, look that up. Maybe you heard someone else talk about that. Maybe have a conversation with them. If you're in a space of, you're feeling called in that direction, but feeling the resistance or I'm not too sure, ease your way into it. We get these little inspirations and insights and little nigglings for a reason. So just go ahead and allow yourself to follow it and see what gift is there for you. And you know what? Everything is possible. So again, age is just a number. Hey, retirement, your next chapter, you're still alive. What do you want to do next? This is your life. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so grateful for your time in viewing us, and let me know what you're taking away. I'm going to go ahead and close out the show here. I'll see you again very soon.